All right. Hello, everyone. Sorry for the delay. I put my phone down somewhere, and now I don't know where I put it. So I had to like 2FA something, and I couldn't find my phone. So hopefully we don't run into that during the actual stream. Anyway, picking up where we left off last time, I did plug in a couple quick things and got to a failing test that now just has to do with the model. But let me bring everyone up to speed real quick on basically I thought about this, and after a bit, let's bring up PHP Storm. That'll help to actually look at some code. So let's do that. And while that's firing up, I'll kind of explain in words what I'm talking about. The whole point here, the whole original issue here was that the user wanted to specify a custom pivot table name with Blueprint. Now that's pretty custom. The problem with that is, as we saw in the last stream, as you start to do the relationships and the inverse relationships of each other, to track that down and to keep track of that, it becomes a little bit complex. It's not like we can't do it, it's just that it made me stop and think. The whole point of Blueprint and the whole point of Blueprint being rapid is that it leverages the Laravel conventions. What is this issue? This issue is they want to make a custom pivot table name, an unconventional pivot table name. And so again, it's not that I can't do it. It's not that you couldn't write this code. It's just that if the core premise of Blueprint is to leverage conventions and therefore allow you to generate a lot of code for very little typing, this just kind of counteracts the goal, right? It's not worth the time investment. We spent 40 minutes on the stream last week, kind of trying to get that to run, and saw 3 or 4 issues, arise from that. And while there are some bugs to fix here, I think the ultimate point I'm getting at is that I don't think we're going to allow, I think for a belongs to many relationship, aka something that something that drives a pivot table, I don't think you can customize the table name. Can you customize the relationship name? Can you give the relationship name an alias? Yes, you can. So that part we will fix. But what I will not, quote unquote, fix is allowing this to be passed down to the belongs to many relationship name, the pivot table name. I don't think that makes any sense. I think it's very unconventional. It's not worth touching several of these generators to kind of make that work. So, long story short, cooler heads prevailed. I removed that. So if we look at this, migration for the alias, basically what I did, we wrote this in the last stream. Basically what it is was I went back to customer pet. Okay, this should be customer pet. Now, the generated models from this, we should fix that part of the bug where owners, that particular relationship name should be called owners instead of customers. That part I'm fine with. I'm fine with aliasing a relationship. We do that in other places, so for a little bit of feature parity, that's fine. But the other relationships don't have pivot table names. They don't generate tables, maybe just columns, and that part of the aliasing I'm fine with. But given the conventional naming of a pivot table, I kind of decided against that part, especially when I saw how many places the code would have to change. So that's kind of the full backstory of off stream. Let's make it work and then hopefully go on to another issue here in a little bit. So the migration generator is now passing. It was all kind of working as before. We basically just got it to ignore that name. There was a failing test as a result of that, but again, it was all based on the ability to rename that. Now, the original test just took that name verbatim, which is what this is doing, and now someone kind of claims it's a bug. So you're never going to make everyone happy. So I think just sticking with the conventions and kind of hardlining there, again, is really what's going to be easier for me in the future. So let's go to the model generator test. We have one last failing test. We need to update this test to use our new draft file and generate the appropriate models. with an aliased relationship name. So let's take this output generates models with custom pivot table. Whoops. I think, here we go. So we'll change this to output generates models with alias belongs to many. Okay? So we leave all this alone, I think. Let's change this custom pivot table name to now, what were these called before? I think if we go back and look at our migration generator test, we're gonna need this, belongs to many alias, yes. We're gonna need that. So there's our draft file, and then we should expect it to generate 2 models, right? And I think it was pet and customer. I don't know if we moved these over from our L12 hacks thing yet or not, but let's find out. So let's go into test, fixtures, models, alias relationships. That's not it. I think we called it like belongs to many. We did not. I don't think we brought those over. Let's bring them over. So if we copy .L12 hacks app models, there's pet. So let's call this test fixtures models belongs to many alias pet.php. Yes. All right. And then something similar, but this will now be customer, and we'll make this customer. There we go. Cool. Hey, Mateus, how's it going? Steven, Mohammed, thanks everybody for joining live. Just catching up on the chat there. Good to see you all rejoining. Let's get these names right here. So we'll say belongs to many alias pet. And we'll change this one to customer. Is that what we called them? Get status, belongs to many aliases. Not sure if this is intentional, but your cam just went off. It did? Oh, did I press a button? There we go. Oh, my eCam live, thanks. My eCam live was focused, and I hit Command 1 to bring up the file explorer in PHP Storm, but I guess this app was focused. Sorry about that. I'm back. Hey everybody. Not that seeing me should matter that much. It's about the code here. But yeah, that should be, hopefully that's fixed now. Okay, I think this test looks better. Let's just run it, right? Let's run the test. PHP unit, let's copy this, put that in, filter. Let's filter just this. And we should get a failure. Okay, good. We got 2 things generated. That's good. I think our test is just a little bit off. Here we go. Created app model customer, and then app models pet.php. All right, that should fix that. Okay, model stub fillable stub. Exactly 1 times book. Oh, okay. Okay, we just have some offset stuff here. Okay, I think everything where we expect stub, is now gonna say twice. Because we're generating 2 models. Let's see if that helps. Oh, and I think some of them we freaking cache and some we don't. It's all weird. Kind of hate this part of the testing. Okay, hidden stub. We don't call hidden at all. So that's fine. Let's get rid of that. Okay. Method app models should be called exactly. Okay, fine. Exist twice. It's kind of more complicated. Okay, here we go. We're finally at a place where we expect this to work. Okay. So here's pet. Here's pet. This should say owners. We're going to drop this piece, right? We're going to drop that piece. That's next. Okay, so let's get in and make sure our customer pet, whoops, our customer.php file looks better. This should be in models, this one. Pets, that's fine. But the pet one should say owners and then not have this, right? That's what it should look like. Now, I don't think it does because this part, we're gonna have to go dump out. This is where I wish Mockery kind of was like Laravel's testing layer and would say like, okay, it expected this. I found this call instead that looks like this. It doesn't do that. It's just kind of like, hey, this expectation wasn't met with all this crud. I wish it kind of diffed them. That would be really, really sweet. I worked on that at one point in time, and it was like this deep, dark rabbit hole, and I just kind of like got scared and backed off. I want to revisit that at some point, to be honest, but it's deep. And then like if it didn't get merged, it'd be like a waste of hours and hours and hour. They wouldn't merge it. Sometimes they're kind of strict about what gets merged in. It's a wonderful, like, it's the de facto mocking in PHP. It's like the de facto mocking library. But honestly, like it's so old. It's so old. It really needs like some modern DX, right? Especially after using something like Laravel. Not trying to gripe about it. Again, it's the de facto. Like I like it way better than anything else. But yeah, it needs just a little touch up. It needs a little fresh. It needs a little polish, right? All right, anyway. We need in model generator path create populate stub. All right, let's go down to populate stub and let's just dump the stub right here. Oh my goodness. I don't know why that keeps popping up. I need to actually read that someday. Okay, let's dump the stub and see what we're getting out. Okay, so belongs to customer, and then it's tagging in owner because it thinks it's the custom name. Okay, so really what needs to happen is we need to drop owner from here because we're kind of no longer supporting that. That was a bit half-baked for like pivot table names. See you later. And it should have always been here. That I think this was just totally reversed for pivot tables. So let's go clean that up. Model is pivot, class extends model. Okay, so it's not that. I think when we build the relationships, this is going to be where it is. Okay, so model relationships, blah, 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 blah. If it contains colon, what we kind of need to know is like the type of relationship, right? We kind of need to know the type of relationship and then say, if string contains, all right, if it starts with an ampersand, that's like where you can actually make like a, what do they call that? Like an intermediate model. I think this is the syntax for an intermediate model. I want to see where it kind of goes into belongs to and figures out what to write here. There's no special paths for belongs to that I'm seeing in here. Here we go. Here's a belongs to many. Okay, so if it's in belongs to many, return plural of the column name. Okay, so here's what I'm thinking. We should definitely be getting in here, right? Because the reference is going to contain a colon. It's going to contain owner, right? So we should definitely get in here. I think if we dump, let's just dump reference. So for each reference, let's dump type and reference here, actually. Let's dump type and reference. And then just to reduce some of the noise, let me go back up to the stub and make sure that we get rid of that dump. Because now we kind of know where we are. Okay, here we go. Customer owner, perfect. Okay, it belongs to many. So we have a hook. We can now say if it belongs to many and you have a colon, do something different. Don't rename the table, right? So let's kind of see where that's happening. Let's go back down to our dumps. Does this tell you the line? Yeah, it does. All right, 329. Here we go. Okay, so we explode the foreign reference and the column name. We're assuming this is column name. If column name starts with an ampersand, it's pivot, take after, else, before last on the ID. Okay, so I think what needs to happen here is now we need to say else if the type is belongs to, then we want to kind of like, yeah, we want to change the method name. Yeah, that's weird. Before last ID, that should be getting owner. Method name should get tweaked. Where's method name actually used? So is morph to is, okay, this is all the crazy morph stuff. Otherwise keys null. Oh, here we go. Otherwise if not null class and belongs to many. If it's a pivot, otherwise, so we're probably getting down here. Dump. Here. Did we get there? Yeah, we do. Okay. So how are we getting in here? Else. So class isn't null and it belongs to many. It's not a pivot. So we just automatically, and then how do we, I hate like densely nested stuff. Should be better than this. We're still in string contains. We're still in string contains. What's interesting to me is that the method name method name is plural. Oh, okay, no, here's the method. Oh, we rewrite it on the column name. Why isn't method name being used? Why isn't method name being used? Method name should be right. Let's look at method name. Customers. Why are you customers? Based on what I understand, we should... Okay, so we're here, we're dumping here, and then method name should be before this part, owner. Let's dump. So I think somewhere it's getting changed lower down. Pets, owner. Okay, so yeah, owner, and then here, and then it gets back to customers. So it is being set correctly up here. All right, that's fine. The problem now is that class becomes foreign reference, which is, yeah, okay. It's not necessary, but all right. So is model fully qualified? Where's this set? It starts with that. No, okay, so it shouldn't be getting there. Goodness me, this is dense. This needs to be broken out into like some helper methods that like make it a little easier to unchain. This is the result of like naive programming, which is fine on the first pass, but for like a maintained project where I'm probably getting, I bet you if you like did a git blame, there's a bunch of PRs that like kept following this pattern, and now it's like very dense. So we're definitely getting in here. The point is that we don't need to get here anymore. We don't need to get here anymore. There needs to be like an exception. I don't know why this was added. I don't know why this was added. Add support for fully qualified model name relationships. It's old. It's like 4 years old. And we get in here because else if you have a class name and it belongs to many. If it's a pivot, then we're using an intermediate model and it has to output a bunch of extra stuff. Otherwise, it's not a pivot. and we always see, I feel like we just shouldn't always output that, personally. We kind of like should never output this anymore, to be fair. I'm just going to get rid of this. We really should never output that. We'll see what other tests break, but we should really never output that anymore. So now the problem is column name gets reset to class if type is morphed to. Otherwise, the method name goes back to being the column name, which got reset here to class. That's the problem. Yeah, method name, if it's fully qualified, why isn't method name just staying method name? Don't we already do all this fully qualified dance up here? Yeah, see, intermediate, method name. Yeah, we already do all this up here. There really should be no reason to do this anymore. Method name, honestly, method name in my opinion should just be the plural method name. Like, I don't know. That's what it should be to me. I don't know. I'm crazy. It passes. What else did I break? One other thing. Okay, I broke one other thing. How did I break it? Okay, I broke it for one of the other. This is an intermediate model. I broke it for an intermediate model. Let's see what this is supposed to be. All right, that might be legitimate though that I broke it for that, to be honest. It says custom pivot, so that might be a legit failure based on this new design. Let's see what this is supposed to be. So model custom pivot team. Let's go open that. What is it claiming this is supposed to be? Users belongs to many. That's not the one I think it cries about. Oh, no, it does. Okay. So we're supposed to see, okay, we know what we're supposed to see. User teams. Oh, but it's, I think this is probably supposed to say members. I think that's probably supposed to say members. Okay, I think I did lose something there. Let's go back. Let's revert this real quick. Is model fully qualified after? Okay, we've already done that. I feel like the way this should probably read is like, is pivot? I think this should probably say, if the pivot model is defined, then you would use column name. Otherwise, use the method name we defined earlier. That feels a little more logical to me. Yeah. Wow, that was a headshot guess right there. That feels intuitive though based on reading that code. So if it's a pivot, meaning it's an intermediate, right? That's the check we're doing here. If this is an intermediate model, right? And you've defined a pivot, then you should use that thing's name. I don't think we should probably be doing this everywhere. And I think there's cases where we now probably messed that up a little bit. But I definitely think method name should have stayed in here. That seems like an oversight. I think when that got PR'd, they either didn't have a boundary case test, and it just kind of passed when it really shouldn't have. Let's see if the whole test suite passes. I kind of just want to be done with this, to be honest. Okay, so minus 1,000,000 dumps, this passes. Okay, vendor bin, pint. And then let's get rid of our dumps. See you later. Do we have any other dumps? No, we don't. All right. Let's GST this. Let's get add dot, get whip, get push, dash u, origin head. Let's run pint one more time. I was kind of changing that on the fly. All right, let's open this. And let's see what we have. Let's get the PR going. Let's let CI run just to make sure like the tests are all passing. And while we're doing that, I'll look at some of the other issues. Oh, upgraded Chrome. Okay, let's try this again. Get open. Thank you. All right, let's make a PR. I'm going to say remove custom pivot table naming. I'll write a fuller description to reference why for future readers. But for now, I just want the CI to run. Okay, let's go take a look at the open issues. Okay, so alternative belongs to many relationship name not working. Okay. So I think this, yeah, customers here should be owners. This is really what the person cared about, was this, not so much this. I think honestly, if I were to have a conversation with this person, they would probably agree that owner's kind of strange there. So I'll close this with the PR, and the PR will describe what's going on, and I'll make sure that the documentation, that little line in the documentation says, when using a belongs to many relationship, you know, an alias will change the relationship name, but the table names will remain conventional, you know. Okay. There is wrong route model binding in controller. All right, let's see what's going on here. Issue, using route model binding. When you open an issue or a PR, please just take a second pass and make sure that the formatting is correct. Why is this bold? Why is this a heading? Why isn't this in the code syntax? I mean, you already got some of the code syntax, right? Like, the rest looks pretty good, but yeah, honestly, it makes me want to close it. It makes me want to close it right away. I'm gonna read through it, but my initial reaction is to close it. So just take a minute. Make sure your stuff looks good, right? Whoever's maintaining this on the other side, like, they've taken time to craft this thing that you're using, you know, most likely for free. You know, take a minute to also craft your request, right? With an equal amount of care. Anyway. Okay, issue using route model binding, user, and method signature, but then trying to manually find the user with user find. However, ID is not defined in your function. Okay, so okay, so it seems like we're doing route model binding on one of these generated bits, and then we have this user find statement, which seems unnecessary. Okay, so what are they doing? Well, in fairness, they have find. In fairness, they're saying find. There is wrong route model binding in controller. Okay, here's what I would want to do. I think this is wrong. You have a find statement here, so that's just a bad draft file on the user side. But what I would want to check, in fairness, what I would want to check is that if I do a resourceful controller generated with Blueprint, the shorthand, does it still also make the same code? If so, then that's a bug. Otherwise, this is just a user kind of not realizing that they put the find in there themselves. So let's go check that. And then we'll come back to our PR because it's still running. All right. So let's go back to our L12 hacks. What do we have going on in here? I'm gonna nah this, and then I'm going to we're gonna need to look at a lot of stuff. Let's switch projects to L12 hacks. Let's get into Blueprint and let's do our thing. So where's Blueprint? There's draft. Let's get rid of this. Let's go take their stuff. Let's copy this. Now we know that there's reproduces. We know there's reproduces it, but we know exactly why. They're finding by ID. It's generating it's generating the code correctly. Their just generation statement is wrong. What I want to see though is if I say resource web, and technically you don't need controller here. You don't need this either. You don't need timestamps true. So yeah, there's clearly some stuff here where they maybe, in fairness, the user, seems a little bit new. Seems a little bit new to Blueprint. So I can comment back and kind of give them some guidance. But this is the way I would craft this file, in fairness. Now, they might have, you don't need to say ID because it's automatic in Blueprint. Again, leveraging conventions in Laravel, less typing, right? You don't have to say timestamps true, that's the default. And you don't have to guess what the relationship type is for deleted at or the column name. You can just say, soft deletes, and Blueprint will automatically expand that. Same thing with this user controller. You don't have to say controller, it's automatic by convention. And you don't have to define all the resourceful methods because, again, that's just a web resource. So Laravel, that's conventional Laravel. Like, this is kind of a cruddy resource, right? It's going to show, create. It's going to do all that stuff. It's going to render with the user and users, query all. All this is generated for you. Name, phone number, email, that kind of stuff. Like, you could condense this, right? If you wanted to customize this, you could do that. But again, the web resource is, you're going to type so much less, and all you're going to have to do is change maybe one field to not be validated here, right? So let's run this. That soft deletes might be soft deleted, but anyway, PHP Artisan Blueprint build. Let's see what it makes for us. Okay, so here we go. It makes a user controller, even though we didn't say controller. It brings up the user factory, the create users table, the model, the test, the requests for that validation, and then index, create, show, and edit. Okay, let's go see what user controller looks like. My guess is it's totally fine. Okay, we got users all, create, store, show, there's user, there's no find. So this was an example of just, I didn't look at it the first time it came in, but again, probably because of the formatting, I just didn't look at it. But now that I'm going through these, this is just a user mistake. They're probably learning the draft syntax, based on kind of what I see here, and there's no reason for them to generate this. So I'll just point them to the docs and let them know that, this code's getting generated because of the find command. So I don't see anything wrong here. Let's go back and see if, yes, good, we're good. Okay, so before I merge this, all the tests are passing. I think this works. Before I merge this, I want to make sure to give it a description here, a little bit of documentation, just for future people that may say, oh, I thought I could generate a custom name. I can point them here and say, I took this out because it's kind of confusing and unconventional. Let's go see what some of these other ones are. I had the need to add additional traits to the model. In my case, this PR adds ability. I thought you could add traits. Let's see what they got. Did they give me some tests? I'm fine with this. I think I would want to put it under meta. So Blueprint, I think I have like this meta section, maybe I've never even put it in here. Configuration. I thought I had like a meta thing in here. Do I not have any meta stuff? I'm fine with this. Let me find merged and meta. Here we go. Introduce meta key for customizations. Here we go. Yeah. I think I would want it under meta. So I'm fine adding traits. I think from a draft file perspective, though, I'll probably just put it underneath meta. So you would say meta and then traits. So just move this underneath, to meta. Again, though, taking a step back. The goal is for again, Blueprint's core goal. There's two goals. One, rapid application development, first and foremost. You know, it's not rapid if you define which kind of leads to the second goal. It's not rapid if you have to define everything in Laravel in your Blueprint file, in your draft file, right? In YAML. Like, the goal of Blueprint is not to be a transpiler, right? It's not to be a superscript of Laravel. You know, it's not like TypeScript or something is to JavaScript. That's not my goal, right? Which kind of leads to the second point. You know, there are some things, it's not supposed to have feature parity. There are some things that, like, you would just go add to the model. So, with that said, while this is nice and, you know, like, it's probably longer to type this here. And, like, this is a true case where it's probably more to type here in the YAML file than it would be to, after you generated your user model with Blueprint, to go into the class and type has roles and hit like Alt-Enter, you know what I mean, to get the import or whatever IDE you're using. So I don't know. Let me know what you think in the chat. They put in the work. I'm fine to probably leave a comment here and say, hey, if you throw this in meta, I'll merge it because, like, I guess why not? But it's probably not going to be a documented feature. I just don't, the goal of Blueprint, again, the secondary goal of Blueprint is like to provide for the first goal of being speedy is not to have one-to-one feature parity with the language or the framework for that matter. If we can leverage conventions and give you stuff, great. But yeah, I'll mention this. If they want to put it under meta, I'll merge it, but like I don't need that. Okay, I do want to merge this. Yes. I do want to merge this. However, from Shift I've learned that people that are kind of like heavy adopters of like static analysis, like using stan, for example, I've heard that the cast method requires a pretty gnarly doc block to like still work. Now, as someone who's dabbled in the abstract syntax tree for Shift and gotten deep into code analysis, I feel like a tool like PHP Stan should be able to figure that out without some gnarly... Like, if they were figuring it out for the return array before, they should be able to figure it out wrapped within a method, too. Like, they just need to go pull out the return statement. But anyway, the ultimate point that I'm driving at is Laravel still supports both, and from what I understand from Taylor, like, kind of moving away from breaking changes, he'll probably continue, like, the framework will probably continue to support casts for a very long time, I would think, the cast property. So while I would advocate that Blueprint should generate the code this way, I wonder if I should augment this PR to have a configuration option that allows you to still generate, you know, cast properties, again, if you were like deep into static analysis. The alternative is Blueprint could generate the, you know, PHP Stan or Laristan compatible, you know, doc block based on, you know, and then you could keep it up to date. But again, I've heard it's pretty gnarly. I don't use those tools. I don't go deep down that road. Like, I think they're cool. I care more about tests than I do about typing. I would rather spend my time writing more tests for like more boundary cases than I would like going and crafting a bunch of gnarly Stan specific, you know, type doc blocks. Anyway, the point is I want to merge this, but I want to add a configuration option to allow casts. I think it's annoying. I think it's annoying enough that it's probably worth still supporting and or looking at the doc block. Like, is it Laristan model casts? Here we go. I think there was a pretty big, like, there's a pretty big thing here that I think somebody tried to fix. Let's see here. I was also struggling with this. Here's what I got working. Get the attributes. Okay, so return array. So see, they basically remap this. There's no, in my opinion, there's no reason Stan can't parse, like, you can't parse that out, really? You gotta go write this? You can't parse that? You're layer Stan, you can parse that? Come on. What did they say here? Excuse me, this seems to be a little bit problematic. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, yeah. I don't know. What'd they say here? Not broken in the sense, but uses aesthetic. Okay. I don't know what they decided here. There's clearly a lot of back and forth. I don't know what they landed on. I don't know what they landed on. I think I'll probably just merge that. I think what I would rather do if somebody griped that like Blueprint, you know, wasn't compatible with Layer Stan or something. Honestly, I would probably just do a live stream and like get this to freaking work. It can't be that. I don't know. Maybe I'm being very naive. So apologies to the maintainer of Layer Stan, but like, you can see the reasoning on the PR for the reviewed files. Yeah, I'm not gonna read this whole thing. Somebody tell me what the reasoning was, but like, if they were originally parsing this without just as a property, and without this massive ugly doc block, like I don't know why they still can't. They should just be able to look into the statements within the new method and pull out the return. Now, for a super complex one where you're doing crazy stuff, fine. You know, you just say that's our boundary, fine. But if for this, again, knowing what I know about the syntax tree, like for this, you shouldn't have to write that. That seems silly. They should just be able to pull that out. They were before. If they were able to map this before without that, like they should still be able to do it even in the method wrapping. So anyway, long story short, merged. I'm surprised these tests are passing. They're not. Okay, interesting. Okay, so my guess is probably a lot of test cases need to be updated. I don't know why they didn't run here. Where's my test cases here? What's going on here? Checks. Workflow runs completed with no jobs. Very strange. Oh. I bet you there's some kind of file filter on... I bet you there's a file filter on our workflows where it ignores anything that's not a PHP file, and they only changed the stub. So it didn't trigger the build. Okay, I'm gonna leave comments on these other PRs. I'm going to fill in some reasoning behind here for future readers. Because I think that's helpful, just as we saw on Layer Stan's own thing. Like there needs to be a summary somewhere. So I'm gonna put a summary here. I'm gonna merge these two, and I'll comment on the other ones to do a little cleanup based on what we discussed. So that's probably the end of these streams. I think I'll get into some other stuff next. I feel like the rest of this stuff, yeah, again, the rest of these things, like as I mentioned last time, anything that's marked as like enhancement or community, again, to me it kind of strays from those goals of Blueprint. And while I'm not gonna say no, I'm not gonna write it myself. So this is about to be closed. This is closed as not a bug. It was actually just an incorrect draft file. And then the rest of these have been out here for quite a long time. If the community wants to pick them up, great. Otherwise, they're here for it. So cool. All right. Well, yeah, I'll come up with some new streams next week. Probably some PRs back to Laravel. I like doing that. I've had some ideas of in the recent weeks, so might try to work on that next Wednesday. So anyway, thanks everybody for joining live. See you next Wednesday.